Maybe you should stop your staff.
Reminds me of what Nick said about the PS5s or whatever.
So once again, Tony, what exactly is this war that you experienced, right? What did you experience that tells you this? We were all taught it, and I'm sure you felt bad when you were other girl instead of your wife.
What's up, everyone? Tactical Turtleneck here, and today's video is a little bit different because many of you might have subscribed last year when I covered the Brandon Herrera versus Tony Gonzales eating corn the long way election. And this year, he is running again. And this year, there's even more scandals afoot. From banging other people's wives to those wives lighting themselves on fire. You know, there's a lot to talk about. But one thing that many people haven't really talked about has been his military record. And we have some stuff to go over because, well, it's just not what he might claim it to be. And joining me today is somebody who can comment on those things, because there's of course going to be the one or two people in the comments that are going to be like, but Dak, you're not in the military. You can't comment on people's veteran status. You're right. I feel a little weird about that too. I think I can, you know, but I feel weird. But you know who truly can comment on those things? A drill sergeant. So I am joined today by my good friend, Richard High. You might know him as Angry Cops. And we go over some stuff. Enjoy. Rich, I asked you to hop into a call with me today because I am not a veteran, and you are a veteran, correct?
Yeah?
Okay.
What, am I on the stand?
Yes. Well, no. You are helping me out with something because Tony Gonzales is currently running against Brandon Herrera, and Tony has said some things that I don't necessarily understand, but some people have pointed out to me aren't necessarily, I don't want to say they're not true, but they might be exaggerated in some regards. Okay. And as a result of that, I don't want to speak on it because, or at least I don't feel I can, because I don't have enough knowledge because I'm not in the military, but you are. So I just have, maybe you could clear some of them up for me, okay?
Sure.
Alrighty, so before we get into any of these specifics here, is it fair to say that you're very familiar with the difference between combat, service, and support roles?
Yeah, like combat arms and then those MOSs that support combat arms?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Now, for anybody who is not a military person, such as myself, watching, could you explain why the military makes such a clear distinction between combat roles and support roles?
Well, I mean, there's a distinction because one's directly involved in action against the enemy combatants, and then the other's roles are to support those combat arms in their mission to directly engage enemy combatants. So a simple example would be combat arms would be infantry, and then a support role would be like supply. Supply's job is not meant to be in direct combat, right? It's meant to sustain and assist the infantrymen in their mission to provide direct combat in whatever area that applies to.
Okay. All right. And now Tony's role in the military, to my knowledge, was a naval cryptologist. So would that be considered a support role to you, or would that be?
Yeah, that's a support role.
That's a support role. Okay.
I don't know why I'm giggling at it. Support roles are totally cool. There's nothing wrong with support roles.
Yeah, of course. And by the way, of course, I don't want to
just thought he was
disparage
like a
anybody.
nerd. You know what I mean? He's just like, he's a cryptologist. Like, what? Like in my head, I literally just went nerd, and that's why I started laughing.
I mean, that's fair, but I don't want to disparage anything because, obviously everybody who joined the military, y'all did it. I didn't. So, yeah. Now he said, Tony Gonzales, going back to that, Tony has said, and this is a direct quote, "I fought in 2 wars." Now, from your perspective, is that a fair statement, or is that kind of already leading?
It's leading, right? Is it true that he was deployed and served during 2 wars? Yeah, absolutely. But when you say like fought like that, and I think he's saying that intentionally, right?
Yeah.
You think of direct combat. I fought in 2 wars. All right. How did you fight? And he's going to say, well, I was on a computer doing cryptology. And you're going to go, what exactly were you fighting? Viruses? Spyware? Is that what you were fighting? The Taliban was trying to, give us Trojan horses or spam us with dick pill ads? What exactly was your fight? You know what I mean? So,
okay, yeah.
Like, yeah, you're not wrong. You fought in your role, whatever that role may be, when you're deployed. But when people say fought, those that are listening, the individuals that they're talking to, that elicits like a thought in their mind, which would be direct combat. You picked up a rifle, you were shooting at somebody was shooting at you, right? So if a naval cryptologist is saying, I fought in 2 wars, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, but you know, you're not having supply guys be like, I fought in 2 wars. You're saying, you know, I served in 2 wars. I was deployed for 2 wars. You know.
Yeah.
Is it kind of nitpicky? Sure, but it's one of those things where you kind of look at a guy sideways and go, why are you saying it that way? And, you know, usually the people that are saying it that way are trying to bloviate a little bit of their service. Okay. Not stolen valor, but, you know, kind of like, what are you talking about, dude? You know?
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. So now that kind of leads into another quote that Tony Gonzales has said, which is this is once again direct quote. I know what war smells like. I know what war feels like. And when someone says that to you, service member, you know, does that make them sound like they're trying to, you know, say, oh, I'm a combat veteran, or is that more kind of just a blanket statement to you? Once again, it seems leading, in my opinion, as somebody who is not a military person, not a military veteran. You know, hearing this, I think, oh, that person served. Maybe they know what gunfire is, you know, but smells like, you know, what does that mean to you?
So if you deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan, a combat zone, you are a combat veteran, right? That's that is legitimate, right? If he was in service in an area where there was conflict, then you are a combat veteran, right? Even if you're in a support role, like you're like a cook or supply, right? Okay. If there's mortars coming down and you're in a combat environment, you are a combat veteran, right? There is a potential for you to be engaged, right? That's the I forget the actual like military term for it. You're whatever. But like, if Tony Gonzales is saying that what do you say? He smelt war?
Yeah, he says, his quote is, I know what war smells like. I know what war feels like.
What the fuck does war smell like? I know what war smells like. It smells like fucking burnt diesel fuel. That's what it smells like. It smells like human shit on the side of the road. Now, I don't know what a cryptologist is doing, a Navy cryptologist. If he was actually boots on ground in a combat zone, then yeah, he would know what it smells like. But if he was on a ship in a combat area, like, what do you mean you know what combat smells like? Define that to me, guy that was on a ship, right? Yeah. So that's one of those things where I would have to know more about what his deployments, however many they were, in order to know that. That's what war feels like. Once again, if you're a cryptologist, what does war feel like if you're on a ship and not on the ground in a combat zone?
Yeah.
That would be my question. And once again, you're saying I know what war feels like. I know what war smells like. You're kind of painting a picture of a battlefield, right? That's what image comes to my mind.
It's conflating it to the thought of what the average Joe would think is. That means that, oh, he fought, he was actively engaged in combat, right? Yeah. So once again, like, stolen valor, no. Getting a side eye from guys that served, yeah, you know, some infantryman that's going to go up to a Navy cryptologist, and the Navy cryptologist tells the infantryman, I know what war smells like. That infantry guy is going to look at him and go, what the fuck does it smell like, dude? What are you talking about? Who talks like that? Yeah. Okay.
Like, you mean a specific thing? Tell me what you smelled the war. Tell me the smell of your war, guy. Like I said mine. Mine's burnt garbage, diesel fuel, and human shit. The shit streams in Iraq. That is my smell of combat. Fucking, those poo streams. Those black mud water poo streams. PTSD is real.
So now,
yeah, what's his PTSD from? He couldn't get a floppy disk in the fucking slot hard enough? Is that what it smells like? It smells like that warm computer air at the back of your fucking tower.
That reminds me of what Nick said about the PS5s or whatever.
Good pussy smells like air out of a PS5. Yeah.
So some PTSD, man. It explains a lot. But now, if a service member who never engaged, the enemy in any physical act of combat like that, were to say those words to you in uniform, as you said, like you said that you'd give them the side eye. That's what a typical person would do, is kind of look at them like,
I'd be like, oh, that's a weird way of putting it. That's, it's kind of like somebody, I don't know if you're like a nerd for a specific video game or a genre of Halo. All right.
Yeah.
That's like somebody trying to describe the flood and saying the flood in a weird way. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, the flood is a hive mind. That's what it is. It takes over planets one by one, and that's why the Halo rings were created. Yeah. Because we both know that world. It's like somebody kind of coming in and being like, the flood and grunts, and it just sounds weird. Him saying those things, if we were at a bar and he started talking like that, I would immediately be like, what did you do, dude? And then he would tell me I was a cryptologist in the Navy. And then I would look over at my friends and be like, what is this fucking guy doing right now? I feel weird. I feel strange. What the fuck is happening?
So needless to say, it's an exaggeration to you to say that.
Well, to me, he's trying to use buzzwords that non-military people would think of as like direct combat roles to see him in like a better light as like a frontline troop. Okay. Whereas troops who have served look at those statements and go, I see what you're doing there. You're not saying anything wrong, but you're intentionally using these words to like
pick up a girl, kind of.
Yeah, kind of like to show off, right? To kind of flex a little bit, Gotcha. It's like me going around saying that I was a special operator all the time, right? My first tour, Civil Affairs and PsyOps fell under SOCOM. And so when we deployed, we were special operators. But I'm not a kicking door special operator like anything like that. I was a dude that was a subject matter expert on the area that we were going to support soft elements and also line unit commanders and battle space commanders. So I'm not a door kicker. So technically it's true. I mean, it is true, but it's also not something that I would say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm special operations. Claim. Yeah, I wouldn't go around saying I'm special operations because they'd be like, "Oh, are you a ranger?" I'm like, no, I'm civil affairs. And then people would look at me like I'm retarded.
Now, here's kind of going into that. Now, so a support element obviously is very, I would say, you need support, obviously. That is back end. Yeah.
Like Russia going into Ukraine right now because they have such poor supply lines. It's a forever war. And they could have made it, like a blitzkrieg and taken it over really quickly in those first weeks. But because their supply lines are so trash, that's why they couldn't move any further.
Yeah,
so
supply
is extremely
needed.
important. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You will be overrun quickly if you don't have good logistical command.
Okay, so then why do you think that somebody like Tony Gonzales would do this? Is I guess my question. Do you think that it's really just to puff his chest and feel good about himself, or is he, being that he's in politics, is he trying to make it seem, appealing to voters in that regard or donors in that regard? Yeah,
I'll go with, he's like Tim Waltz. You know what I mean? When Tim Waltz was like, I deployed for GWAT, and you're like, you deployed to Bosnia, dude. What do you, stop saying it like that. I carried that weapon of war. You're like, you carried it in a training environment. Don't stop acting like you're some badass. This is kind of like what it's going on. It looks like he's trying, I take it as him trying to get additional political brownie points to people that don't know better. So then when people take him to an event or some gala, they can go, look at this combat veteran who knows the smell of war. He's really in it. He knows what he's talking about when he talks about the troops. But he's, any fucking Marine would look at him and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? The smell of war, cryptologist, Navy guy. Let a fucking Marine 0311, infantryman, just hear a naval chief in cryptology be like, I know the smell of war, and just watch that dude get destroyed verbally by the Marine.
Fair enough. Okay, so would you say that the statements of oh, I know what this smells like, and I've served on the front lines, which I believe is what his official campaign statement was on the House.
He served on the front lines?
Was that they say he served on the front lines. Would you consider that to be an exaggeration? an outright lie, or once again, are we still in that territory of just the muddy waters that allows him to just play word vomit?
I think it's like a hyperbole. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, he's on the front lines. Does that, like, were there really any front lines in Iraq? No.
It's the same way AOC's
like,
on the front lines in New York City. Kinda.
Yeah. It's political speak, you know, but because he did serve potentially for 2 combat tours. You know, I'm not going to downplay his combat tours. If he served in combat, like, then he served in combat. Good for him. I'm not going to take away from him.
I didn't.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to take away from a guy's service that's legitimate. I will, however, look at you sideways if you start saying I served on the front lines. So like, oh, okay. If you served on the front lines, as we all understand it, as Americans, right, people, then that would insinuate that you were in some sort of combat or directly engaged by the enemy in some form or fashion. How is a cryptologist on the front lines? Like, you're there sitting with your fucking laptop as guys are shooting bazookas over your head? Like, what exactly is the front lines for you?
So I guess that comes down to, so how do you think, I mean, you're speaking for yourself, obviously, but also you've mentioned like, oh, the Marine would look at you sideways. So the military community as a whole would look at this, somebody who's saying these things, not necessarily in the most negative of ways, but kind of like you're a jackass or...
Yeah, like an eye roll. Like, we would hear him say that and just go, ugh, you know, audibly moan and be like, what? Yeah. What are you talking about? You know, and I feel like, you know, sunlight is the best disinfectant. The more that, like, direct question, hey, Tony, I'm a reporter from whatever news. What do you mean by you served on the front lines as a cryptologist when you were deployed? Like, can you explain, like, what the front lines were? And then him being like, oh, I was on a FOB, you know, a forward operating base in Iraq. And you're like, so you were on a post like everybody else that doesn't really seem front lines. Like, were you getting mortared all the time? Yeah, I was getting mortared all the time. Okay, well, if your base was getting mortared all the time, then that's legitimate. And I don't want to be the guy that's like, you know, how many songs can you name from that band t-shirt that you're wearing? You know what I mean? But when it comes to politics, and I brought him up before, like Tim Waltz and stuff like that, you see people use their service as like a poker chip to throw in to self-grandize about themselves or virtue signal at how, you know, American or proudly they are. And like, that's not the point of service. The point of service is to serve. It's not to bring it up at different events and have everybody say ooh and ah, you know, and kiss your shoes because you were on the front lines as a cryptologist.
So in I guess military culture, so somebody who did not experience necessarily like a combat position, right? What do you, as somebody who's in the military, think of somebody like that who's framing things in such a way, now positioning themselves as an authority over combat veterans or representing them in some way, shape, or form? Do you believe that it puts like a kind of like oh, that's the guy that they chose to be the PR campaign manager?
Yeah, it's like that. It's cringy. It's cringy. You're like, so the guy that's gonna like try to pump up that he did more than what he actually did is gonna be the dude that represents me, you know? Because you get that cringe where you're like, fuck, please don't be stolen valor. Like, please just say those words, but admit to what you like, but be honest about your actual service. You know, it's one of those things where you're sitting there like kind of clenching, like, oh, please stop. Please just be straightforward. Your service is totally awesome, man. Like, JD Vance was a fucking radio operator, wasn't he? I think so, because I believe that the media did kind of go after him as like, he was commo, which is like, so what? Like, so we went on a fucking combat tour and he was commo. Like, you need a commo guy, just like you need a cryptologist. It's important. Yeah. But like, JD Vance isn't out there trying to bloviate his service overseas. He's like, I went to join the Marines. I wasn't infantry. I was a commo guy, and that's what I did. But I'm still proud of my service. That's what we want to hear. We don't want to hear, I was special operations because I was attached to the special operators. Like, no, you were attached to the special operators. Well, I was front line. Like, how are you front line? You were in a FOB like everybody else. Yeah. Like, you weren't engaging anybody. Front line means you were engaging somebody. Like, stop being weird about it. You know, it's cringy. Yeah. It's not, like I said, it's on the borderline of like stolen valor, but it's more just like, you know, it's just like, ugh, it's just gross. It's just cringy. You know, it's nothing illegal. It's not like we're going to tar and feather the guy, but you're just looking at him like, can you please stop?
And you also look at him and maybe think, oh, maybe he shouldn't represent, a particular veteran community because he's not necessarily the most,
I don't want some guy who's so self-conscious in his service that he has to make up shit, right?
Yeah.
Because what happened, like, imagine, like, I'll put it this way. You remember there was always a kid in your high school class that would make up shit. Just, oh yeah, I went on vacation to Florida, and you're like, no, you didn't, dude. You went to like Myrtle Beach, like everybody else. You know what I mean? Like you still went vacation somewhere, but like you didn't go to Disneyland, like you said. And the thing is with that kid, and I assimilate that I put that on Tony as well. If you want to lie about something that you don't need to lie about whatsoever. You don't need to embellish or over embellish. Like, what else are you doing? Right? That's like that's the ick. That's the ew. That's the side eye. Like, if you're going to give me this little bit of shit for this thing that, like, nobody asked you to do, nobody's judging you for, then, like, what are you doing for the shit that matters? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's essentially, exactly. If you're going to lie about something so insignificant or that you don't really need to, then what else are you going to cover up and lie about?
Yeah, it's like an integrity issue. Like, how can I trust you to tell me the truth later on about things that I care about when you're sitting here trying to stroke your own dick to like your frontline cryptology work? It makes me, it just tastes bitter.
Okay, and so you don't necessarily think that he's crossed the line into stolen valor, but he's definitely in the point of he's not the guy that you want to represent, say, the veteran community for perhaps that district or in any media capacity, because it's giving everybody a bad look.
Yeah, I don't want the guy that has to try and over embellish his service to be on the front page of anything, because one, you're pushing somebody out there to represent you that can't even get through the truth of something that's as easy as, this is what I did for my service. Here's what I did, period. Full stop. And the other thing it does is it kind of promotes that, over embellish your own career to other people. People are going to see that and be like, well, Tony Gonzales did it. I'm going to say that I did this then, And that's just going to end up getting you punched in the face by some guy that was actually at some place that you were at. And it's just like, why are you lying?
Yeah.
Like, why are you lying about this?
So then I guess another big question is, now, when those claims are used to win elections, to silence opposing critics who, they just don't like or say, oh, well, they didn't serve. But in that way, if they're used to intimidate opponents, does that elevate this in the eyes of you or maybe the community writ large as something a bit more serious than maybe mere exaggeration? Like, what takes it from necessarily just him exaggerating, bloviating, being like, hey, girl, look at me, it's a whole 6 inches instead of fucking 3, to the level of, I guess, beyond distaste?
It's a gray area, right? Mm-hmm. There's over embellishment, in different ways. If he started lying about like awards that he received, that's when you're like, all right, get this guy out of here. Okay. When he starts lying about combat, like actually being in combat, or I'll give you an example. Let's say that he was on a post and like there was a firefight with some Army and Navy guys, miles down the road, and they come back and it was a bloody battle and they made it okay, and then he's like, I was a part of that. Like you're like, how were you a part of that? You weren't in the firefight. I was a part of that, man, because I was there. Is that what we're doing now? Our service is, you're a part of everything that happened in an area because you were just there. And then that's when like you start getting that distasteful element of, this guy's a jizz and I don't want to be anywhere near that. Okay. And I don't want him to represent me.
Totally fair. I completely understand that. And I think that for a lot of people, even just the moral authority kind of, piece, I find a lot of people find distasteful. I personally, like, if I were to understand something about the military, I'm going to come to people like you, or, I'm going to go seeking it out because you're in a position, to my knowledge, as somebody who understands the military, right? But I feel like when people are told I am the position, right? The whole Fauci, I am the science versus me seeking it out. There's a difference between that as well. You know, where
if somebody's going, if you're in a topic where it's military related and you say, as a veteran or as a military person that had to deal with something similar or that was in my space in some form or fashion, yeah, absolutely, right? You're adding context to why you feel that way. If you're fighting for gay rights and you're just like, as a military member, and you're like, what the fuck does the military have to do with gay rights? You know what I mean? Besides being in the Navy, you know? So it's when people start throwing around the veteran title where it's not necessary, another cringe moment where you're like, ugh, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?
Okay, so now do you believe that this undermines the credibility of other veterans when some veterans do these things, when some people do these things, when they over-embellish? Do you believe that impacts the veteran community in a negative way?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, imagine if you're... I mean, I'll give you an example. We'll juxtapose it with being a cop, right? Let's say that you've got a police officer that gets pulled over by another department. He's off duty, right? And he starts motherfucking the cop because he's drunk behind the wheel. And then he starts screaming, well, I'm a fucking cop. You can't man to me, right? What does that make other cops look like? Makes it look dirty, entitled.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to deal with that guy. Well, the same thing happens for the veteran world. You know, it's not as egregious as policing because people love to hate on cops. But to the people in the veteran space, when we see a veteran start saying, well, as a veteran, you know, this, that, the other thing, and I deserve this thing, and you have to respect me about that, and this is like a war zone. You know, like, I'll give you a good example would be like in January 6th, you know, when people got into the Capitol building, when protesters got into the Capitol building.
Yeah.
If somebody says that was like war, I immediately just you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. You had a group of people that were upset with the outcome of an election that thought that it was frauded, and then they broke into a building, and then they walked around and then tried to get into other rooms. And then that was about it. And the only person that died was
Ashley
the
Babbitt.
one woman that got shot.
Yes.
So you're like, okay, how was that like war exactly? No, that was a protest. That was like all the protests across the, you know, the country at that time for George Floyd, where people are burning buildings down. So yeah, when people start saying, you know, I was in war, so I know what this is, or I can compare this to war, to something that's not comparable, it's one of those things that just takes away from the overall like veteran space, and like I believe the respect that people give veterans, you know, the appreciation for what they do. You know, it demeans that.
It's interesting that you bring up the January 6th argument, because I believe Tony Gonzales did actually make that statement, equating the January 6th to being like what war was like in some capacity.
Okay, then what exactly? So once again, Tony, what exactly is this war that you experienced, right? What did you experience that tells you this, right? Maybe he did experience something in war that gave him the smells and the sights and the sounds and whatever, and maybe that experience in combat made him feel that way during January 6th. But if he's just a dude that sat on a boat or sat on a base and never left it, and like heard a siren go off because there were mortars going overhead and never impacted in his base, then like, dude, you gotta shut up, dude. You're talking about something that you don't know. And that's okay to not know what combat is like. It's okay to not get blown up. It's okay to not be in a firefight. It's okay to do your support role and serve honorably. It's not okay to conflate your service and then start comparing it to all these things to get like political brownie points.
Actually, I'm going to read the actual quote here because I was looking for it. And this is about January 6th. So you asked, what did the war smell like to Tony? Well, let's find out. When the mob was pounding on the door to the House chambers Wednesday, Rep. Tony Gonzales felt like he was back in a war zone. Said, it reminded me very much of my time in combat. He says, you either fight or you run.
All right, well, as an American, pretty sure we haven't done any sort of tactical retreat, Tony. So tell me when you're running in combat away from the fight, especially if you're if they're overrunning your position. So he said he was in combat. Can you say that combat part again?
Yeah,
What did
he
say?
says specifically, it reminded me very much of my time in combat. That is quote end quote.
That would lead me to believe that he was like engaged with the enemy.
Yes.
That reminded me of my time in combat when I was being like overrun. Like that to me is him saying I was being engaged by the enemy in some form or fashion. And that engagement reminded me of people trying to get into the state building, the house.
Capitol building, yeah.
Capitol building, thank you.
No worries. So, but to my knowledge, he hasn't experienced any. He has no combat ribbons. He has nothing that actually signifies he was in any combat zone. I think the closest he came was he was helping Afghan interpreters.
Well, they're very smelly, so maybe that's how he got the smells. You know, he smelt one of the Terps, and he was just like, "Oh God!" And now when he walks by an uncleanly man who doesn't take in a shower in a week, then maybe that's it.
Fair.
Has he gone to Minnesota? Then he's probably
there.
smelling the people there and then getting PTSD.
He should run. He should run for Congress there.
They love him.
Oh, they would absolutely love him. So I have an interesting, I guess, question. It might require you putting yourself into drill sergeant mode, but
Okay.
As a drill sergeant, if he were standing in front of your formation saying that he fought in 2 wars and saying all of these things in the fashion that he does, saying that, and you knew otherwise, what would you consider that statement honest, and how would you react as a drill sergeant?
Oh, I just call him out. You know, just like that's like what I just said. You know, oh, you smell combat, huh? What's it fucking smell like, guy? Tell me that. Tell me. No. Don't leave the front of formation. Tell me what your combat smells like.
Yeah.
Oh, you were afraid January 6th it treated you just like when you were in combat, meaning like in conflict, direct conflict.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Where's your car? Where's your combat action ribbon, Navy guy? Where's that at? Tell me about that. How come you don't have that? What exactly are you doing? You know what I mean? I would be asking him so many questions.
Yeah. Would it require maybe like a little extra example being made of him in that regard?
Well, that's the example, right? If somebody's going to say something stupid in front of a group of people, then you just go, nope. You know, you just from the back, there I am. Nope. Hey, and then you just walk around the front and be like, really interesting. Tell me more about that.
Okay.
And like the best way to call somebody out for being a liar is just say, tell me more about that. Because what's a liar going to do? He's going to keep lying. Right? He's going to keep
going
off.
down the line.
Yeah. And it's easy to remember the truth because I can just go, oh, well, this happened. I don't have to imagine anything else. But the second that you lie about something and start spewing off other lies to try and back that up, like you're not going to remember everything, but I will. I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. You said that you were here, but then you said that you were in direct combat, but that doesn't make sense. You were in Kuwait. When did you get shot at or bombed in combat in Kuwait?
Yeah.
Which wouldn't surprise me if his combat tours were like to Kuwait and like not in Iraq.
Yeah, I believe it said. I believe it said multiple tours in Afghanistan, and I believe that's what Iraq and Afghanistan. He says.
Well, Afghanistan doesn't have a waterway in it, so I assume that he was on ground. So that means he was attached to some sort of land element, either being the Marines or the Army, and then assisted them. But as a cryptologist, he would be at a large post like Bagram. Someplace because you're not going to be at some random fob somewhere where it's, you know, a company or a couple platoons of infantrymen. There's no point in you being there. Like, maybe he flew out to those places and like assisted in some stuff. That could be it. But I need more explanation to like what he says. Yeah, like he could be absolutely right. He could have been engaged by individuals while he's going from post to post, making sure that their communication is up. Because we have secret, let's see, I forget what it used to be called. But we basically have secure lines of communication which have code. And if you input the code into your radios, well, then we can talk to one another. And unless you have that code, you can't listen to what we're saying. Yeah. So that is one way in which cryptology is used day to day in the Army is for our communications. But that doesn't mean that an E6 or E7 is going to be flying around from post to post, filling up your radios with those codes. Usually you're going to have somebody lower rank flying around with that instrument in order to do that. If you did that, cool. But I think I would have heard about this by now, right?
Yeah.
if he was such a proud dude that deployed and was doing all these things in combat and was in the middle of combat, on the front lines, quote unquote, then all right, where are the stories? Why haven't I?
Yeah.
Why can't I Google it and just find them about you talking about it at a VFW, right?
Now, going into that, so obviously there are ribbons that are awarded to, you know, people, military members for, you know, acts of service or, you know, feats or whatever have you, right? Now, if you are deployed into a combat zone, would you get a combat ribbon?
No. So,
okay.
For the Navy, and I know the Marines specifically, because they're, you know, Department of the Navy, whatever. They get a combat action ribbon if they're engaged by the enemy. Engaged means they're blown up or they're shot at, you know, and then they engage, you know, the enemy forces that are trying to attack them. In the Army, we get a combat action badge or a combat infantry badge, CIB or CAB. CIB is obviously for infantry, combat infantry badge. CAB, combat action badge, is for anybody that's not infantry.
Okay.
So, like when I got blown up and I got engaged, I got a cab because I wasn't infantry. So, but that would be a ribbon on your rack. That would be a memorandum that you had received stating that you got that, you were given that award.
Okay, so if he were in those scenarios, he would have been given some sort of award similar to that.
Yeah, he'd be given a combat action ribbon if he was engaged by the enemy.
Okay,
firefight, mortar, roadside bomb.
And so the fact that he has none of those.
So the fact that he has none of those and then says, like, I was in combat, I was on the front lines, is one of those things that, as a veteran, as a guy that's still in, looks at and says, why are you using those words if you don't have the fucking shinies on your tits to match that up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that's a disingenuous statement at that point. Would you consider that a little bit beyond exaggeration? Now that there's no medals whatsoever?
Yeah. If you're saying that I was in combat but yet you haven't received any sort of combat action ribbon, or for the Army combat action badge or combat infantryman's badge.
Yeah, for the Navy, says there's a Navy and Marine Corps combat action ribbon. Yeah. So
yeah, there you go. So it's a combat action ribbon, the car. And if you don't have a car, then how can you say that you were engaged with the enemy? How can you say you were in combat, right? You could say you were in a combat environment, you were deployed to a combat zone, but you weren't in combat.
Yeah.
Just the definition of in combat means you are in combat with somebody. There is fists or bullets or swords or samurai ninja stars. I don't give a shit. But there's some sort of interaction, meaning combat, a fight.
Something has occurred that was not you sitting in front of a computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you use words like I said, we just discussed it, you know, but to go over it again, if you say that you're in combat, then that means you were directly engaged by the enemy. Well, where is the proof of that? Everybody that's been engaged by the enemy has some sort of write-up. Like I said, for the Navy, it's the car. So if you don't have that, then explain it.
Yeah.
And if you've got a bad explanation, then stop fucking saying it. Just stop saying it. Just stop saying it. That's it. Hey, I said this before. I was wrong. I think people got this the wrong way. This is what I meant. Okay, nothing wrong with it. Cool, man. Easy peasy. But if you don't keep saying it.
Fair enough.
Don't double down on your, no, I was in combat. All right, then.
Well, not just double down, but also use the stuff that you've doubled down on as your ammo against your political opponent is also what he seems to be doing, you know, mobilizing, groups against his opponents, utilizing these statements that he's making.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, now I had a bunch of questions about this. Now, a lot of these covered, I think, a lot of the same things, you know, and you answered them even with just your already answers. But I do have one more thing to ask you about this particularly. Do you have anything that you would like to add or say to Tony Gonzales about his statements? And anything just about the election at all?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's, hey, Tony, how are you doing? You're a piece of shit. I don't like it that you picked on my friend Brandon saying that he doesn't like veterans or supports them when he obviously does. It's called integrity. All right, you learned it in the military. I know we were all taught it, and I'm sure you felt bad when you were fucking that other girl instead of your wife. not very integrity filled there, bud. You know, more like cream filled for the lady if you didn't pull out. All right, which your wife is probably not so happy about. But since you want to bring up integrity and how people treat people poorly because Brandon doesn't like veterans, in your opinion, which I disagree with, maybe you should stop fucking your staff. Think about your wife and your family for a little bit. So, yeah, I don't like that you pick on Brandon for not liking veterans when that's obviously a lie. It's disgusting. I hate it when people decide to smear somebody with some bullshit that they know obviously isn't true. And that goes into the integrity thing. Tack, you know, if you can't be honest when you're making an attack ad, Brandon hates veterans.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's obviously not true, but you approve that message? Oh, so you're a liar. All right.
That's
so you
what my
represent
first
me.
video was about the whole election campaign was the lies that he had, that he had started with.
Oh, the only way that you can get ahead on your opponent is by lying about them, like lies that you outright know are lies. Oh, you're a piece of shit. Oh, okay. Attack him for his policy. Attack him for like saying like you don't understand the things that I voted for. But like to make up a lie that he hates veterans, my community, who he supported so well, get fucked.
Yeah. No,
that infuriates me the most. Of all the things, of all the, you know, he's pumping up his service and whatever, just him outright lying about somebody that's such an advocate for the veteran community.
Yeah.
To say like, and to smear them as like some anti-veteran, like piece of shit. Oh, that gets my blood boiling. Go fuck yourself. Like would you do that if Elon Musk was going to run against you for your district, Tony? Would you tell Elon Musk that he hates veterans knowing that billions of dollars get poured into like veteran research and assistance for the, like, no, because now what you're doing is you're having a guy that used to like veterans now be like, oh, well, I guess if this veteran can lie about me and I can do all this work and it means nothing, then fuck it. I just won't do this work anymore. Fuck him.
That's also a fair statement. Is it makes people, the moment that they find out that you're disingenuous, that makes people want to no longer be affiliated with that particular group.
Yeah.
Just as a whole.
Let's say that Brandon like just was neutral about veterans, didn't know any veterans. Just like, I don't really have any veterans, but you know, I support them. You know, I give to this charity such and such a time. And then you've got a Navy guy that's his opponent who says Brandon hates veterans. And then Brandon's like, no, I don't. You're a veteran. Why would you say that? I give to these veteran communities. Isn't that something we could both agree on? You know what? Fuck it. If that's the way that veterans are going to treat me, then I'm not going to give them fucking anything.
You'd hope so.
There you go.
Like you'd hope that you could see eye to eye on at least the basics, the fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
But sadly, I don't think that we live in a world where that is possible anymore for
Tony's
some people.
Stupid. Tony's too dumb to think his own thoughts. He sees what other people have done, and he gets his money from, you know, big R Republicans, which is fine. Whatever. You want to raise money, raise money. That's great. But like, think on your fucking own. He can't. Yeah. He sits there and he tries to do the same. He's not a talented politician, because if he was, he could take the playbook that all politicians have used in the past, which is, you know, lying about individuals and stuff like that, and he would be good at it. But he's not. He's so dumb that he can't even take the playbook that's written out for him that politicians have used for forever in mudslinging and bringing down their opponents and trying to win for their elections. And he fucking botches it.
Also, he can't face any of his critics because he blocked me last election cycle on X. Did he block you as well, or did he not have the cojones to block such a big account knowing you'd make a lot more noise than me?
I don't, you know what? It's funny. I don't think he just like pays attention to me, which is fine. Slip under the radar, but still get people to, you know, shit on him because he deserves it. So, yeah.
I know that Donut was, I think, enemy number one.
But he can't block Donut because Donut is a constituent. He lives in the district.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It was First Amendment law. It was there was some sort of
Supreme Court ruling,
and I think it was due to Trump because Trump blocked somebody on like his government account. I think it was Trump. Don't quote me there. But basically, the end result of the suit was that you cannot block your constituents on social media because you are obligated to answer their requests as a representative of that area. Yeah. So now, he can't block Donut, which is this. Boy, that's an Achilles heel. I don't know what is.
Now, what I've seen, though, is I have seen people make the argument that they are in his district and still being blocked by him. And
then they need to sue him.
The argument that people have made in advocacy for Tony is it is his campaign account, not his official account, and therefore he can do with it as he wishes.
That's true.
Is that, yeah.
Because a campaign is different than his actual position.
Yeah.
But
But it's what he also uses to engage with his constituents, which I think is just such a...
so you could sue that. It's like, depends on how much money you want to waste. But you could still sue that. Like, oh, hey, this is a campaign one, not his actual representation one. Well, that's funny because he's using it to talk to his constituents.
Yeah.
So why is he limiting his constituents on one form but not the other? Isn't that wrong? But because there is a channel open, I don't think that it would be a winning case. The channel being his official account. Well, that's all right. You can still shit on his official account.
I can, and I will continue to do so this cycle. And
or you can comment on people's reposts of his shit when you can see it, because you know it's not blocked then. It does
allow you to do that, and that's the beauty of X, actually, is that it still allows you to kind of still engage even though these things happen. So
it's like secondary contact. It's exactly what order protections like protect people from. Like a second or third party can now officiate.
I'm going to have my mom contact my ex-girlfriend now.
Yeah. Tell Sarah she's a bitch and I love her.
So, God damn. Well, Rich, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for clearing some things up. As I said, as somebody who's not a combat veteran or a veteran whatsoever, I have no idea about these things. So it is way better that I go asking people that do.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that you had me on. I had fun.
Oh, well, thank you so much, sir. And let's end it there. If you made it this far in the video, you are epic. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment with how you felt about the video. And if you really want to get involved and just see how much Tony Gonzales likes lying, you can go out and check tonysvotingrecord.com. I highly encourage it. Great website filled with all of his lies and half-truths and his absolutely abysmal voting record for Texans. Make sure to check it out. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a good one.
Tony's in the mirror, round 2 of his tango. Sucks his junk between his legs, while fapping to his own jangle. Swears he's learned his lesson.